Good morning, LifeGate. Happy Mother's Day. Woo! How's everybody doing today? You doing good? Yeah, you sound good. Let's try it again. Y'all doing good? Yeah, that was good. I like that right there. Good morning. So good to see everybody on this beautiful, wonderful Mother's Day. What a sweet presence it has been. We're so thankful for the Lord's presence, aren't we? Yeah, he's so good to us. Now, it's Mother's Day, so we're here to celebrate all the moms and the women in this room. So maybe when you came in today from either the front entrance or the back entrance, as you were coming in, you saw some tables that had this long green fabric over it. That's going to be set up for all the moms and the women here in just a minute. When we get ready to leave, stop by that table, pick yourself up a cute little glass cup, because we're going to have an infused water bar for you. And what that is, it just means you're going to put some fruit in there, some mint in there. You can put some ice, and then we'll have some other good stuff. I think there's ginger out there and cucumber. So whatever you want to mix or infuse your water with, you can do that. And then we're going to have some guys out there that are going to be serving you, some gentlemen who are going to be nice, handing you your cup with ice in it. They might give you a little, hey, good morning. They might, I was telling them, please guys, smile today. And then he said, can we give shoulders? Brian, no shoulders. Okay, no shoulders today. So as you get your cup, put your good stuff in it, and then you can put water in it, or you can put, we have soda water out there. So however you want to mix it, it's going to be delicious, it's going to be cute. And then it also says LifeGate. It has a LifeGate sticker on it, or it has a LifeGate Mama sticker on it. So grab your cups before you leave. We want to honor you, love you. It's our gift saying we love you, we see you, we honor you in all that you do. And because we're honoring the women in the room, let's go ahead and just give them a big old round of applause. Can we do that right now? Come on, guys. Come on, kids. Let's get it going. Ladies, honor your moms in the room. If we want to shout, if we want to holler, if we want to cry. Sometimes we want to cry because we think about our moms and how wonderful they are, or that we don't get to see them as often, or that we don't see them anymore. But we just want to celebrate them. And while this day is full, it's full of love and celebration, we also know it could be a day that's not so easy. For some, it's joyful. And for others, it carries grief or longing or maybe even complicated emotions. It's a day that can be hard for many. If it's hard for you, please hear this. God sees you. He knows you. You're not forgotten. So here's a little story for everybody in the room. Here's just a little way we want to honor you. A mom had finally carved out a little quiet moment in her chaotic day, but then she walked into the hallway and she saw it again, the smudged little handprint on the wall. She had wiped it off a dozen times before, but this time she paused because the handprint wasn't just a smudge. She remembered it's a little story. It reminded her of a little boy who danced down the hallway with sticky fingers after breakfast, who still needed her, who still called her mommy, and who still asked her to kiss scraped knees and tuck him in at night. So instead of grabbing a rag and wiping it off, she just stood there, put her hand over her heart, and she said, Lord, help me to see the beauty in this season, even the messy parts. And also for those women in the room who haven't seen little tiny handprints on the wall yet. Maybe you're still waiting and you're still praying. Maybe Mother's Day does bring a complicated just ache to your soul. I'll gently say this. Again, God sees you. He knows you. He hears your cries. Your nurture, your faith, your longing, it's all been seen and cherished by the God who created you in your mother's womb. Whether your hallway is super quiet or super loud, your heart matters deeply to him. So he's writing your story, and he's writing it with kindness. Kids, they grow really fast, don't they? They grow fast, and one day those little hands, they'll grab car keys and they'll walk down an aisle, or they'll fly halfway across the world. Letting go, it's not just a parenting moment. It's a sacred moment. It's a sacred act of trust. And that's exactly what today's message is all about. It's about letting go. So we're continuing our series, We've All Been There.
And in this series, we started on Easter. But before I continue, I just want to give a little plug for a podcast if you haven't heard about it yet. If you haven't heard me talk about it, there's this podcast called We've All Been There. And you can go to your podcast, you can go to Spotify, you can go to YouTube, you can look it up. And it's your pastor, Pastor Chad, and Pastor Max Stripling, who do this podcast, and they're talking about leadership things. So if you lead in any kind of way, if you lead in your family, if you lead a ministry, if you just want to lead yourself better, then go listen to this. It brings real, relatable stories. They talk about real conversations, and they remind us that we have all been there. Guys, it's a great podcast, and I'm not just saying that because of the cute guy on the front row. I'm saying it because it's really good. I actually thought when they started it, I thought, oh, that's going to be good, but I don't listen to a bunch of podcasts, but I got on the road and I was traveling to Austin one day and I was all by myself and I turned it on and I was like, I'm going to give it a little listen just so I can be one of their listeners, one of their subscribers. And it was good. And so I listened to the first one and I listened to the second one and then I listened to the third one. And it's relatable, it's real, it's vulnerable. And so if you need a good podcast, something to listen to, go check it out. Back to our sermon. Have you ever walked into church and felt like everybody else in the whole room had it all together? Have you ever walked into the room or walked into a service and thought, man, they're smiling, man, they're raising their hands, man, they brought their Bibles. They must really not struggle like I do, right? Have you ever thought that? Well, the truth is that everyone in this room has moments that they would rather not talk about, right? They would rather not talk about because you know what? We all have messes. We all have regrets. We all have had arguments in the car on the way to church. Even this morning, I know, right? You get in the car with your kids, you're rushing, you're going, and there's a little argument. This series is all about real people who were a part of the resurrection story. And what we're finding is that their stories are not so different from ours. They're not so different from ours. So far, we've talked about, we've all known pain. Jesus had pain. He had emotional, mental, spiritual pain. We've had that. We get to see how Jesus experienced that. We've all had doubts like Thomas. We've all felt shame like Peter. And today we're talking about something that really hits close on Mother's Day. We've all had to let go. Now maybe right now you're in the process of letting go. And it's hard and it's stretching you and you're wondering, will my heart survive? Can I do this? Maybe right now, I just want to promise you that there's a promise that God is in the letting go. God is in the process of letting go. And you're not alone in that release. You don't have to do it alone. Letting go does not mean that we're losing our kids. It doesn't mean that we're abandoning the relationship. It means that we're placing them into the hands of the one who loves them more than we do. We're placing them into the hands of the one who created them, the one who loves them deeper than we could ever imagine. Now, imagine this moment with me. Jesus is 12 years old, and his family has traveled to Jerusalem because they're on their way. They went to the Passover, which they do every year. But on the way back home, Mary and Joseph suddenly realize Jesus isn't with us. He's not here. And they had assumed that he was with other family traveling back, but as they walk around and they look for him, they can't find him. So after a full day of walking, they begin to panic because they can't find him. He is not traveling home with the caravan back to home. So they turn around and they go back to Jerusalem and they are searching and they are worrying and they are retracing every single step. 3 whole days, guys, 3 whole days go by and they can't find their son. When they finally find him, he's in the temple and he's calmly sitting and he's listening to the teachers, asking questions and amazing everyone with his understanding. And Mary, like any mom who's probably gone through a panic, asks this question maybe every parent would ask. In Luke 2:48 through 49, it says, if you want to open up with me or if you want to read the screen behind me, it says in Luke 2:48. Yep, there it is. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. His mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." "Why were you searching for me?" he asked. "Didn't you know I had been in my father's house?" Didn't you know I had been in my Father's house? Now, can you imagine how Mary must have felt? She's just spent 3 days in a panic. 3 days searching for her boy. And when she finally finds him, he gently reminds her, I'm not just your son. I'm my Father's son. That must have hit hard for her in a strong way. Because it's a moment of realization that she's raising a child that one day she will have to release. She's raising a child that one day she'll have to let go. Now, whether your child is just starting to walk, or just starting college, or about to get married, there comes a time when you can't protect them anymore. You can't protect every step, you can't fix every mistake, and you can't help them make every decision. Now, that's where letting go becomes one of the hardest parts of parenting, that we've got to let go. Now, let's talk about this. Why is it so hard to let go? Real quick, 3 things. Because letting go feels like losing control, even though we never really had control. Let's just be honest. But it feels like we're losing that control. Mary lost son of her 12-year-old son for 3 days. Now, I can imagine as a parent, because I have lost my son for 5 minutes. And the sheer panic, it's horrible. And you lose, your dignity in that moment too. You're like, who did I just become? I was about ready to take out the security guard to find myself, right? Like you go a little bonkers when you're looking for your kid for 5 minutes. Jesus was gone for 3 days. Letting go feels like losing control, even though that's false control. We never really have it. God is writing a bigger story than we can see, a story that we cannot control. A story we cannot control. Now, Mary didn't fully understand Jesus' destiny, how he was preparing, even as a boy, to follow after his father's purpose. But she had to release her idea of motherhood, her control, her needs, her thoughts of what it looked like. Now, some of you may be saying, okay, but Amber, I'm still in the stages of diaper changing, right? I'm lunch packing. I'm in the middle of bedtime chaos. So you're not thinking about letting go. You're just thinking about hanging on for dear life, right? I can't let go. Chaos will ensue. Letting go doesn't happen all at once. So this message is for the mama who just had a newborn. And this message is for the mama of a toddler. And this message is for the dad and the parents in the room who are raising preteens and who are raising teenagers. This message is for you, because letting go doesn't happen all at once. It happens in little moments every single day. Letting go doesn't only happen at graduation or when they move out or when they have to make the big life decisions. It begins in the everyday, ordinary moments of parenthood. Every stage of parenting includes those tiny acts of surrender, those tiny acts of letting go. It starts the first time that you hand your newborn to a nurse. And then it continues the day that you drop your son off at pre-K and he doesn't look back. And then it shows up when you're standing behind them at the kitchen counter and you're letting them make scrambled eggs for the first time, and all you want to do is take over because it's going to be so messy. Somebody's going to get salmonella. You're not just raising kids. You're steadily, slowly learning to release them to God. Not because you're done parenting, but because you're trusting. Now, maybe you've taken your kids to the park as a toddler or even as a young pre-K-er, and they're climbing the steps to that first step, and their foot slides. And what is the instinct? Mom and dad, the instinct is to put your arms out to grab them and say, we'll try again tomorrow as you leave the park. But something inside you tells you, no, I got to let them try. I got to let them do it. I got to release. I got to let them go. So you let go. You step back a little. They climb. They slide, they're fine, and you breathe, right? That first time, and then the Holy Spirit even reminds you, in Psalms 127:1, it says, unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the guards stand watch in vain. You are not raising your kids alone. You're not watching them alone because God is building, even when you're not holding. God is building even when you're not holding. Letting go doesn't mean you stopped loving them. It just means you trusted them. But even more importantly, it means you trusted Him. So whether your kids are learning to walk, learning to drive, ready to live on their own, letting go is something God calls every parent to practice. Letting go. Not all at once, but one small surrender at a time. And as you go, and along the way, Deuteronomy 6:6-7 says, these commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road and when you lie down and when you get up. You are doing the faithful work of planting truth in their hearts right now. You're doing the faithful work of planting so that they can walk in it later. So we're going to impress on them, and we're going to talk with them when we sit and when we walk and when we go. We're going to instill truth in them. Letting go is a process. It's not a single moment. And it starts right now. Now, trust and believe that God is forming them even when you're not watching. So whether you have kids that are 4 or 24 or 44, this message is for all of us who are learning to just release control and trust God with the people that we love most dearly. So why is it hard to let go? Because it feels like we're going to lose control, which we never had. I'm just going to keep reminding you. Number 2, letting go challenges our identity. For over 30 years, Jesus was Mary's son. She raised him, she taught him, she protected him. She knew his laugh, his habits, his voice. She fed him when he was hungry. She took care of his scraped knees. She kissed him more times than she could count, probably on the forehead before he went to bed. But eventually, he stepped into his mission, the mission that God had for him. And Mary had to release him to the Father's purpose, a purpose that led him straight to the cross. A purpose and a mission that led him straight to the cross. And this is where it gets personal for many of us, especially for moms. Our identity is tied to our kids. First and foremost, that's what I'm a mom of 4 kids. I have 3 kids. I don't know where that 4th came. I'm a mom of 3 kids. 3. But that's what we do, right? I have a son-in-law, and I'm about to have another one. There we go. That's going to be 5 kids. My son-in-laws. There we go. Okay. And that's where it gets personal when we tie our identity, right, we tie our identity to this role, and we think, well, that's who I am. That's who I am. But before she was ever a mother, Mary was a servant of God. When the angel appeared and changed her life forever, her response in Luke 1:38 was, I am the Lord's servant, Mary answered. May your word to me be fulfilled. Her identity wasn't in controlling the outcome. It was in obeying God's call when it cost her comfort, when it cost her her reputation, and eventually when it would cost her her son. Her right to hold on, it would cost her. Her identity was rooted in obedience to God. Her identity was not rooted in the possession of her child. You see, parenting is stewardship, not ownership. We're entrusted with these precious souls for a season, but they belong to the Lord. They are His. Maybe you remember a season when every chair at your dinner table was full and kids were laughing and drinks were being spilled everywhere and interrupting conversations were happening, silly stories or toddler meltdowns. And then one night, one of those chairs is empty and your oldest is off at her first job. Or your daughter is now getting ready to go to college. Or your daughter even is across town with her friends because she's learning to become her own person. You look at the table and your heart swells, but it also aches. It swells because of the chairs that were full. It aches because of the chairs that are empty. And at that moment, you realize your identity cannot be tied to the people who sit in those chairs. Your identity cannot be tied to those who sit at the table, because your deepest identity isn't being a mom or a dad or a parent. Your deepest identity is being a child of God. Willing to say yes to him. Willing to say yes even when it means letting go. You're still mom. But even more than that, you're God's daughter. You're still dad. But even more than that, you're God's son. Called to say yes, Lord, in every season. So, yes, in this season of letting go might feel like a loss. But it's not the loss of who you are. It's the uncovering of who you've always been. It's the uncovering of who you have always been and who God has created you to be. So why is letting go so hard? Because it feels like losing control. It challenges our identity. And number 3, letting go is so hard because we may have to watch them struggle. One of the most painful parts of parenting is knowing you can't protect them from everything. You can put up the baby gates. You can triple check the car seat. You can tell them to look both ways before crossing the street. You can tell them to make wise decisions. You can pray over their friendships, but you cannot fix everything, because eventually there will be something you cannot fix. And that fear of not being able to fix something for your kids is paralyzing. It's paralyzing. Mary knew this pain deeply. She watched Jesus face rejection. She heard the crowd turn on him. She stood outside while religious leaders whispered behind his back. She wept beneath the cross as the soldiers drove nails into his hands and feet. And she couldn't stop any of it. She couldn't bargain with God. She couldn't take his place. All she could do was stand with him and trust God's plan even when her heart was breaking. In Luke 2, Mary was warned early that love would cost her something. In Luke 2:35, Simeon's prophecy at Jesus' dedication said, "And a sword will pierce your own soul too." When she watched her son's body be broken, when she watched his blood be poured out, she didn't run. She didn't run away. She stayed. But man, that had to have pierced her soul so deeply to see the hurt and the pain he was going through. Sometimes that's what real love does, right? She couldn't take away the pain, but she didn't leave. She stayed. I think it was Briley's freshman year in high school. She came home and she was so very, very, very quiet. And I was like, "Babe, what's wrong? What's going on?" And she goes, "Nothing." But she was quiet. She was despondent. She didn't want to speak. She was just kind of there. She was in the room. And I asked her, I said, are you in pain? Does your body hurt? She goes, "Nothing painfully hurt me." But I could tell she was hurting. So all I could do was stay close. And all I could do was sit with her. And all I could do was pray for her. And she got up. We sat there for a little while. She got up. She walked into our piano room. She sat down at the piano. And she just sat there. And she didn't move. And Chad got home, and so I told Chad, I was like, "Something's wrong with our baby. I don't know what it is. She's not talking to me. She's not in pain physically, but something hurt her heart today." And so Chad goes in, and he sits down next to her at the piano, and he just starts to play, quietly, slowly. And then a little later, he starts to sing some worship songs. And she just sits there. And moments later, she starts to play with him. And so I remember this moment distinctively because I took a picture of it. And I thought, I don't ever want to forget this moment, because that was a moment where we couldn't fix it, but we could sit with her. We could be with her. We could be present. And that's what Mary had to do. She could not take away the pain. She could not fix the moment that Jesus was in, but she could be present. And she could trust God that he was still writing the story even through the hurt and the pain. Now, sometimes the greatest act of love is not protection, it's just presence. Being there, staying close. A hand on the shoulder. Words don't fix everything, but presence can. We don't have to rescue, we just have to remain. Not preventing the pain, but knowing that God is working through it. That he is speaking and that he is loving and that he is lifting her up through it. Mary didn't stop being Jesus' mother at the cross. She became a model for every parent who's ever had to say, I can't stop this, but I will not leave your side. I won't stop believing in what God is doing. Now, some parents in the room are thinking, yeah, but that's physical pain. That's something she didn't cause. That's something Jesus didn't cause. What about my kids who were walking through and struggling in such a way, but they caused it? Be present. Don't fix it. Be present. Love. Walk beside. Don't fix it, but remain. Maybe you're saying, well, okay, I understand all of this. I understand that letting go can be hard, but I have to do it. But what happens when I do? Some amazing, powerful things happen when we do. There's a turning point. When we loosen our grip and we entrust our kids to God, here's what happens. Number one, they learn to hear the voice of God for themselves, and their faith grows. There's a turning point in every parent's journey of faith when we realize our voice is no longer the voice that they need to hear the most. But I have the best things to say. I wish they'd keep listening to me. We spend years teaching them all the things that we know. And we hopefully that includes how to pray and how to spend time in the Word and how to spend time with Jesus. But we try and teach them, hey, this is how you treat people, and this is how you react to people who are mean to you, and this is how you, and we try and teach them all these things. But there comes a day, like it did for Mary, when we have to step back and we have to trust God, who speaks to us will also speak to them. In Luke 2, Jesus is 12 years old. Like I said earlier, he was 12 years old and he was in the temple. And when Mary comes 3 days later, she's like, why'd you do this to us? And he goes, didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house? Sitting in the temple, listening, asking questions. And when Mary says it, why? Why did you do this? I had to be with my Father. I had to be in his house. In that moment, again, she realizes it's not just her son. It's her father. It's his Father's son. He is his Father's son. In John 10:27, it says, my sheep listen to my voice. I know them and they follow me. You know, faith is not inherited, it's encountered. We encounter faith. Yes, parents, your guidance, it matters a lot. Your example matters more than you even know. But there comes a time when the best thing that you can do is step back and allow your kids to hear the voice of God for themselves. Have you ever been ready to leave for school or church or get ready to get on the road or whatever, and your daughter comes in and she's 7 years old and she's so cute and has a big old bow in her hair and she goes, I can't find my other shoe. And you're like, but we're late and where's your shoe? And I don't know. You know what? It happened when she was 7 with a shoe. It happened when she was 16 with her keys. It happens at 45 with a phone. Where's my phone? But what happens, right? You're like, okay, we go into search mode. We go into, well, where did you have it last? Why isn't it with the other shoe? Why are you just now looking for it? Right? And you go into search mode, but then you stop and you think, you know what? I've been here before. And what did I do? Jesus, please help me find my shoe. Jesus, please help me find my phone. Right? And you may say, Amber, that prayer is too small to go to Jesus with. No, I don't know how many people in the room, but I have done it multiple times where what matters to us matters to Jesus. Now, is he going to always help you find your wedding ring that you lost when you were 6 months pregnant? No. I didn't find it. I know. But he will. He does. Those things matter. They do matter. And there's times when you can just keep going about your business and praying, Lord, help me recall where I laid that down. Lord, help me recall. And when you teach your 7-year-old to do that, when you teach your 7-year-old and your kids when they're young, that they can hear the voice of God too, and that thing that they just recalled, that wasn't just them remembering where it was, but that it was Jesus showing them and speaking to them. Why don't you ask Jesus? In that moment, we can realize that I don't have to help her find everything that's missing, but Jesus can. If she learns to go to him for everything, even the smallest things, she'll never be alone. And that's the beauty of letting go. You're not just raising a well-rounded kid, you're raising a future disciple. a future listener, a future follower of Jesus. Letting go of spiritual control is hard and it's scary. But man, when they can learn to listen to God's voice, when they can surrender to his voice, when we can be quiet and allow that to happen, because your kids don't just need to know about God, they need to know him. They need to know him personally. They need to know him intimately. They need to know him clearly. They don't need your relationship with him. They need their own. So what happens when we let go? They learn to hear God's voice for themselves, and their faith grows. And then number two, we learn to step back, and our faith grows too. Letting go isn't just something our kids need. It's something we need. Something we've got to do. We often think we're shaping their faith, but the truth is, God is using them to shape ours. God is using our kids to shape our faith. I think Mary's faith grew even more at the cross. In John 19:25, it simply says, near the cross of Jesus stood his mother. Think about that. She has absolutely no control over what's happening to her son, but she is at the foot of Jesus. She is at the cross. There's no way to shield him. There's no miracle to reverse it, no answer to the question why, but she stood there, present, powerless, and trusting God. There was a son she carried, the one she rocked to sleep, the one who was hurting, the one who was sad, the one who was broken. He's on the cross, and all she can do is stay close and trust that God would finish this story. This is faith at its very rawest and realest moment. Not in a moment of joy or clarity, but in the moment where everything hurts and you stay anyways. Mary's story didn't end at the cross. After resurrection, we find her again in Acts 1:14. They all joined together constantly in prayer along with the women and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and with his brothers. She wasn't just the mom of Jesus anymore. She had become a woman of faith, a pillar in the early church, someone who had walked through pain and came out deeper, stronger, and still present. Letting go didn't break her faith, it refined it. Y'all, there's nothing like parenting to confront how much you don't understand. There's nothing like letting go to show how much we need to trust. Letting go doesn't always feel holy. It doesn't always feel like a sacred act. Sometimes it feels like heartbreak. But it's in those moments that God gently deepens our roots. He deeply deepens our roots. You're not just raising a child, God is also raising your faith. And as you release what's most precious, you'll discover something very sacred. That you're not alone. The God who watched Mary let go is also walking with you. He's beside you. He loves you. You're not alone. When you trust God with what's most precious, your roots will go deep. So maybe you're in this place and letting go is hard. And you're letting go little by little, one tiny surrender at a time. It's hard. But it's so good for them, and it's so good for us. There's a deeper letting go, maybe that you've never done. You've been trying to hold it all together, and you've been trying to fix what is broken. But there's peace. You need some restored peace in your life. Maybe it's from when you were growing up. Maybe it's from how your parents raised you. Maybe it's from things that you brought from your childhood into your own kid's childhood. And the Lord needs to bring some restoration and some redemption, and he needs to bring some peace.
Thank you for joining us online today. Make sure and hit subscribe to this channel and hit the bell for more notifications. We can't wait to engage with you this week.